Salofalawa, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Swiswiki. Coming up.
Australians have chosen to face global challenges the Australian way.
Australia re-elects Anthony Albanese, also Samoa drops in press freedom index, and
that's the end goal. We want to win the championship, but first we got to make the top six. And to make the top six, we got to win each week.
Super Rugby Pasifika teams are keeping their hopes high. Anthony Albanese's Labour Party had a landslide victory over Peter Dutton's Liberal Party over the weekend.
Australians have chosen a majority Labor government.
In the lead-up to the election, Tuvalu's climate change minister criticised Mr Dutton for suggesting a joint Australia-Pacific bid to host global climate talks next year was madness. Palau's president also had a go at the Liberal Party leader for previously joking about rising seas. Caleb Fotheringham asked Pacific geopolitical expert Tess Newton-Kane if she thinks Mr Albanese's Pacific approach will change for his second three-year term.
What we heard during the campaign was that Albanese and his team feel that they've done a good job of working with the Pacific and repairing relations that they felt had been let slide or were not in a good state. And I think basically their position is that there'll be more of the same. And that's a mixed bag. I think in terms of what there'll be more of the same of is a lot of focus on security. And we'll also see more of the same in terms of levels of engagement, seeing ministers in the region and high-level visits here to Australia. There may be some change in personnel. So I imagine that Senator Wong will stay as foreign minister, assuming that's where she wants to be. But further down the tree, I wouldn't be surprised if Pat Conroy, who was the Minister for the Pacific, moves on, and then we'll see a new face there.
Do you think there will be some relief amongst Pacific leaders? And I only say that because Palau and Tuvalu, they made comments about Peter Dutton, who spoke about climate change and particularly COP. Do you think there will be a sigh of relief amongst some leaders that Albanese's in?
I think that there will be to an extent, but I think that whilst leaders will be happy to have Labour back in terms of that joint offering of COP next year, which is still to be decided, won't be decided till next month, whether that happens. But I think it's worth remembering that there are still some caveats around that acceptance or that joy, if you like. People are still wanting to know exactly what that joint offering will look like, and that Pacific priorities are really going to be front and centre, and that the Pacific part of the offering is not seen as some kind of greenwashing for Australia.
The Pacific geopolitical landscape has changed recently, particularly with the Trump administration, USAID being one of those changes that's frozen at the moment. Has Labor indicated that they will try fill the void that the US is leaving behind at all?
Well, we saw in the most recent budget that the amount of aid going to the Pacific is the most it's ever been, and it's also the biggest proportion of the overall aid budget that it's ever been. Having said that, the aid budget is still very, very low. Australia is not a generous donor when you compare with other global donors. So if Australia did want to take on filling that gap left by USAID, it would have to be prepared to put some more money into it. We haven't seen any references to that as being any sort of commitment.
This year's World Press Freedom Index has seen Samoa drop from 22 in 2024 to 44. In the Pacific, New Zealand is in the lead at 16, followed by Australia at 29, Fiji at 40 and Tonga at 46. According to local Samoa media, Samoa's reputation as a regional model of press freedom has suffered in recent years due to political pressure from the previous government. I caught up with our Samoa correspondent Tipi Autangawaya and began by asking for his take on Samoa's ranking on the World Press Freedom Index.
Well, it's interesting to see that we are dropped down to 44 this year, but it'll be interesting too to see what the reporting details is saying about the reasons why we are dropped.
What other reasons are you able to elaborate?
Well, I don't know any reasons because as far as I know, the media here is doing their role as it used to always to be, and we have no restrictions. But yeah.
How would you describe Samoa's media freedom in comparison to other Pacific islands?
Well, Samoa's media freedom is still up to that standard where we people working in doing the role of journalists are doing, informing, investigate whatever is happening in the government and in the country as a whole.
What's kept you in the media industry after all these years?
Well, I have a calling to work in this profession to inform the people, and to explain to the public what's going on in the government and what's been happening around the country.
In saying that, what are you doing to inspire the next generation of Pacific journalists?
Well, this is a profession that, it's not easy, but it has a big challenges, especially working in the small Pacific Island countries where culture is very unique, and the interrelations of people, the family, the ainga is more important. But, when you work as a journalist, we have codes and ethics to follow, but we know how to handle issues that we are involved. So that's the biggest challenge to me working in the media in all these years. But I think I managed to work those hard areas of the industry, especially being a journalist. Okay. And when you face people in the government, which are you related to, and then you know how to handle yourself, because I simply pass it on to somebody else doing the same work to do it instead of me doing it.
It was another big weekend of sports in the Pasifika Sipoti Circle this past weekend. The Fijian Drua and Moana Pasifika recorded wins in round 12 of the Super Rugby Pacific competition. All that and many more, our senior sports journalist Elisa Tora joins me for our Sports Talanoa. Pula Elisa, first of all, talk us through Fijian Drua and Moana Pasifika's victories.
Yes, good weekend for both the Fijian Drua and Moana Pasifika. The Fijian Drua managed to keep their unbeaten run against the Reds in Suva on Saturday afternoon when they scored a last-second try through Iskeli Rambitu to get the win that they needed, a win that the management had called for earlier in the week. It was a tough clash from the opening minutes, and it was tit for tat in the first half, with the Drua and the Reds giving it their all. Towards the end, the Reds had taken a lead, and they were. It looked like that they were going to win, but fortunately for the Drua, there was a spill ball, and Rambitu managed to get across the line to get that win. Unfortunately for them, it doesn't really give them any hope of getting closer into the top six. Also, Glenn Jackson, their head coach, says there's a glimmer of hope there if they can win their next home matches. On the other hand, Moana Pasifika recorded their first ever win against the Highlanders in Dunedin on Sunday evening. It was a clash that also came right down to the wire, and Milani Matavao getting across to score that winning try after he charged down a clearing kick. That win pushes Moana Pasifika into the top six, and Captain Adi Savea says their aim is to now keep winning and retain or secure their place in the top six so that they can go into the playoff with the ultimate aim of hopefully getting to win the title.
And meanwhile, Fijiana women hosted the Wallaroos of Australia in their first ever test match in Fiji. How did that go for them?
It was the first ever game for the Fijiana against the Wallaroos at home. It was a game that that the Wallaroos were getting into using that as a build-up to their Pacific 4 series matches that are coming up soon. And the Fijian are also testing out their players as they also prepare for the Rugby World Cup, which will be hosted by England later in September this year. The Wallaroos managed to beat Fijiana 43-7 and kept their winning record against the Fijiana, having now claimed all 4 wins from the 4 matches that they've played so far. Fijiana only managed to get across in the first half, early in the game when their captain Alfredo Fischer scored a try that was converted. After that, it was the Wallaroos all through, and they claimed that win in the end. Fijiana management saying that they were happy with what they saw despite the result, because they saw that there was some promise, there was some hope in how the players played. Being their first game together for the season, most of the players in both sides came off the Super W rugby competition that was completed last month, and Wallaroos not just proving too strong, too clinical for Fijiana in the end.
Just moving on from Super Rugby, Los Angeles hosted the last event of the World 7 series in the last 2 days. Can you update us on how our Pacific teams performed and who were the winners in the end?
Well, very not a positive weekend for the Sevens team from the Pacific in Los Angeles in the men's competition of the main challenger or the championship series. It was the Fijians who were not able to win a game. They lost all 4 matches. Their 3 pool matches. They lost to New Zealand, they lost to Australia, then they lost to Spain in their 3 pool games on Sunday. And earlier today on Monday, they went down to Great Britain in their playoff. So they were not able to win any game at all in Los Angeles. And I think it is the first time that this has happened to the Fijian men's sevens team. Fijiana, on the other hand, managed to beat Great Britain in the playoff for 5th position, so they finished 5th at the event. New Zealand women won the women's competition after beating Australia in the final, while the men's title went to South Africa, who defeated Spain in the men's final.
And just to round off our sports wrap, Elisa, soccer or football also made the news around the region at the weekend. What were the highlights and where did those happen?
Yes, a lot of soccer or football events happening around the region at the moment with the Oceania Football Under-16 competitions. There was the Under-16 that was held in Rarotonga, and that saw American Samoa creating history by winning the final matchup against the Cook Islands 5-4. In winning that, they recorded their first ever qualifier into an OFC event. So they've now qualified for the OFC Under-16 women's tournament that will happen later this year. In Tonga, they are hosting the men's Under-16 qualifier as well. And in the first game on Saturday, Papua New Guinea managed to beat the host, Tonga. Unfortunate for the Tongans, they were not able to hold up against Papua New Guinea, with Papua New Guinea winning 5-2. And in the second game, American Samoa with Vanuatu fought to a 2-2 draw. 2 first half goals pushed American Samoa ahead in the game, but Vanuatu came back really late in the second half to score 2 goals and record a draw. So that tournament in Tonga will continue over the week, but in Rarotonga, as I said earlier, American Samoa have won the qualifier there, and they will advance into the Under-16 women's tournament later this year.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.